of my beloved cousin and her gorgeous home and estate with her foster child here in North Carolina. At the time of this recording, it is Cinco de Mayo, May 5th of 2024. Hey, happy Sunday. How's everybody doing and going today? Are we having a fun, upright festivity without using somebody else's resources to go have a good time? Because it matters. Oh my goodness. Cinco de Mayo always happens to be special for me. Before the gang stalking, the targeting of the individual had uprooted my life, I actually had gotten my first financed vehicle ever, which was a Jeep Wrangler. Oh my goodness, I loved that. I loved my Jeep. When I signed the papers on Cinco de Mayo, and so I just have wonderful correlations of the mind associated with the day of celebration being the independence of Mexico, from what I understand. So, I'm like, whenever everything got topsy-turvy for me with the gang stalking and my Jeep got repossessed, I didn't skip a beat, because I'm all like this. It was just on pause, and everything that was usurped from me, I know that the Almighty will return it to me better than it ever was. So when I look at my pictures, I'm all like, it's cool. Why would you get mad? You're just going to throw out your energy after a circumstance that would have rewarded you in the end to begin with. Because I'm all like, learning is the way, and experiences provide the rationale. Now that I've been gang stalked heavily for since the pandemic up until this point, granted, it's been different being in a controlled environment rather than being in living out of my truck, and I really appreciate that my cousin had taken me into her home, because had she not done that, it's not that I want to try and guess what would have happened to me, but I can say this, that I appreciate all of the opportunities that she had provided me by taking me into her home. So I am forever grateful for that. But the Cinco de Mayo has got me, in my happy feels of remembering my wonderful Jeep, because, I set out and struck out on my own, but it was like this. Not all of my priorities were in, complete order. I was being heavily gang stalked at the time. And so it was like this. If you're being heavily gang stalked with the psychological abuse and torture, how does anybody expect you to have your priorities in order? Because it's kind of like, we want to hold you accountable for not having your priorities in order. And just because you were psychologically abused in the exercise of the wireless, touchless, fenceless vehicle of Holocaust, who cares? I'm all like, okay, if you come at me from that particular perspective, number one, go look at yourself in the mirror. You're no better than me or anybody else. Because if you were, you would have the empathy to understand and overstand what it's like to be gang stalked to begin with. So when you're being psychologically exploited 9 ways from Sunday, you're doing well to be alive and happy. Everything else can just suck my dick. So whatever. But when my Jeep was repossessed, I'm all like, man, I had to pick my battles. I was being horrifically And it's satanically, because the gang stalking is a demonic existence. I was being satanically abused by those witches in the covens with the devil, blah, 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 worshiping. Not to mention all the delusion in between with all the reptilians. TMI. But hey, if that's my perspective, so what? I mean, if I hold on to my integrity at every temptation, that makes me a universe above everybody else who thinks they're being rational by discounting reptilians' existence or endorsing it. Because if I'm eating with a fork and I know not to stab you in mid-feed, because it's ethics here, I'm ahead of the curve. So with the looshing in between with all of those reptilians, I still managed to keep my head up above the water. I would say I'm ahead of the curve, so whatever. But this particular video is going to be about the militia. I know I have spoken about the presence of all of this gang stalking, all of this organized community harassment that we come to know as targeting of the individual through gang stalking, which is spearheaded by FEMA and made happen by private surveillance companies known as InfoGuard and Citizen Corps. They use a Guardian app to promote their networking of working over your target. Then they also have these institutions where these government grubbing, sardonic, gold digging, psyop assignment prostitutes, where they go get trained up to do the bidding of being the psychotic psyop prostitute by selling out their integrity because they ain't got no more morality or ethical being. They allowed their soul to be usurped out from underneath them. But, okay, so the militia. When I speak of the militia, I am talking about the psyop assignment prostitutes that go out and do the gaslighting and everything in between that encapsulates the unethical practices of sex trafficking, human trafficking, of all the pedophilia and the drug trafficking out in the world. One of the school of thoughts had been the pandemic was supposed to come in and destabilize the economy, which it did, and made people more susceptible into compromising their morality and ethics by participating in being the psyop prostitute of gang stalking others with their coordinated, organized hate crimes, or coordinated, organized crimes against humanity. So just because you think that your diabolic psyop assignments that you prostitute your soul for is plausible deniability, it can never be relegated to you. Honey, you go to the watering hole to get your goddamn psyop assignment from your circus trainer that's taught you how to be the flying flunky monkey. That right there incriminates you. Plus, everybody's devices here can be hacked 9 ways from Sunday. And then they can coordinate your dialogue while you get the goddamn Nabisco treat assignment. Your digital signature is out there. You go visit the website, boom, you've been incriminated. So, go ahead, keep pretending that nobody knows what you're really doing, because the only person you're fooling is yourself. So, if you find yourself on the dishing out of the grub down, you don't have to stay the flying flunky monkey, unless, of course, you are just so bent on your God being money, then go for it. I'm sure that the wonderful happenstance of America is going to protect you in all of the ways. So that's between you and your God. But nonetheless, whenever I come on to talk about my experiences, if what I'm saying happens to trigger you, That's your Jiminy Cricket. And I would go with that because one of the regular patterns I've observed is that I try to do my talks when there's nobody home because I'm trying not to be a belligerent asshole, even though I am being targeted. Now, if I was being targeted, one of the patterns I have experienced is that when I'm done filming, the internet happens to go off for 2 or 3 hours at a time. Because if I wasn't triggering you, why on earth would you spank your targeted individual with speaking the truth? Because if that happens to be a bothersome note to you, that's a good idea for you to turn around and do your introspection and ask yourself why you are being the belligerent, sideswiping minion of the organized hate crimes. Because if I didn't have this talk with any of you, who would? And furthermore, why would you be targeting anybody? So, if you want to have the socioeconomic advantage of somebody, and then you turn around and spank them with your plausible deniability, all you do is show to the world what the grub down is really about between you and how much you really wanted to get your PSYOP assignment done so you can prostitute your integrity. But I tell you what, I never come on here to say anything that I wouldn't have said in public to you or beside you or in front of you. Now, if you're not a goddamn gang stalker, why on earth would you act all triggered? So if you act triggered, I would congratulate you for that and then go inside and do your introspection and talk to your Jiminy Cricket. Because if you're getting the grub down behind somebody's back, you're being evil, you're being psychopath, and you're being sociopathic. Nobody who is in charge of somebody socioeconomically has the right to be evil and diabolic with running PSYOP prostitution assignments. So that's one of the militia I've experienced, is having been spanked by speaking freely, by disconnection of the internet for 2 and 3 hours. So if I ever go a whole day or 2 days, that's because somebody close to me had gotten so butthurt and triggered by what I had to say, and if they weren't a gang stalker, none of it would have happened. Because there are walls with parabolic microphones that they never have to be inside the house. These people can operate with monitoring others without having equipment in the house. They can read the digital signature by use of electronic surveillance equipment through the walls. So as soon as you wake up and your feet hit the floor, there doesn't even need to be audio and video recording in the actual house. So whenever I do my videos, I mean complete respect. But then if somebody has to do psychotic, triggered motion, that's between you and your God. Because your PSYOP assignments, you guys get money off of that. And if you're getting blood coin off some other targeted individual, you're going to be held accountable between you and the Most High. Until then, I do my best to be respectable. But if you don't like what I'm saying, that's your own damn fault for being a goddamn golden grub digger, sardonic prostitute of social pariah being. The ethical shakedown of hoeing out your liberties and thinking you're being ethical. Then my next question becomes, what did the homeless shelters get for running the goddamn PSYOP assignments? That is your militia. You can go to what I've seen out in Seattle, Washington, was whenever I was at the Gasworks Station, Gaswork Park. They would take in chartered buses of all of these buffoons dressed up in their color-coded patterns of their clothes. And then so I've seen it all. I've seen families go do it together. I mean, I don't know what the grub down is for taking your whole family and then teaching your family how to hoe out their ethics. That's a generational curse. I mean, if the almighty dollar is that important to you and you don't care about the curses, well, choke on them. That's between you and your curse and your brood that you just sowed generational curses into. Somebody should wake you up and say something. Oh, I mean, who's going to tell you? The other goddamn government grubbing gold digger that sold out their soul and got no empathy, thinking they had every right to shut the fuck up the targeted individual speaking truth? Hey, if you worship the almighty dollar, what does that say about Jesus Christ? But if you say you honor Jesus Christ, shouldn't you just leave the goddamn target alone and let them speak the truth? Why should that why should that trigger you? Because I will promise you this, there will come the day where everybody knows my case, and I won't have to lift a finger to expose anybody, because you've already exposed yourself by getting your goddamn grub down from the watering hole, from your circus trainers, treating everybody how to be a flying flunky monkey with the prostitution ring, prostituting your liberties in exchange for your integrity for whatever it is, X, Y, and Z. I have lost everything in my life to that. And I have dedicated my soul to bringing exposure to it. I've dedicated everything in my soul to bringing the ethical balance into society. So whenever the Most High releases me onto my next era, you're going to feel really stupid for doing everything you did. And I won't even have to say a goddamn word. But I'll be so filthy rich, you will wish you had been Team Honesty instead of Team Judas of Iscariot. Until then, I still continue to love each and one of you. So if you're going to try to do these PSYOP assignments and these passive-aggressive modes of attack, that says more about you than it is about your targeted individual. So whenever the internet goes down, that I have no control over knowing if somebody comes home or not, that is because that is a pattern. This has been like the 4th and 5th pattern I've experienced that. So like I said, whether or not somebody is actually a goddamn government grubber, sardonic, sadistic prostitution of hoeing out the morality, hey, if you weren't doing it, you wouldn't have been triggered. But I never meant to do this purposefully. I speak my truth. And I'm not out there committing psychotic PSYOP assignments. So that's why I said to everybody, it's not your business if it was happenstance or coinciding incidents. Let the psychos be psychos, because they can't even tell the difference between morality, and if they can, they don't care, because money has become the pinnacle of their existence. Money and bullying and psychotic PSYOP assignment grub downs. It's not my business if it was happenstance or if it was legit psychosis. My business is to love and forgive everybody and give it to the Most High for the heavy lifting to be done by the balancing forces of the world through poetic justice. And I know it's happening out there, but the militia that I was talking about at the top of this video is everywhere. I mean, if you go to targetedjustice.com's website, it will give you a number of how many people are the goddamn gaslighting PSYOP assignment prostitutes through Infoguard and Citizen Corps. Because whenever our country goes to, I can't remember the name of it. Anyways, I'll put a pin in it and come back. But that is your number of how many people statistically are enacting the goddamn PSYOP assignment prostitutes. So if I go silent for a whole day, that's because the internet was disabled, because you can still log on to it, but still not have internet access. Why? Fuck if I know. Could be passive aggressiveness. But everyone around me right now is totally upright, right, and legit. That does not include neighbors. It doesn't include security vans. I've seen you bitches across the way. Y'all get really squirrely whenever I lock my gaze on you and then you move. It is a psychotic regime of Nazi ideology and origin. Fight me on that. Historically, the paper trail is there. But suffice enough to say, in regard to Citizen Corps and FEMA, that's part of your militia right there. And then the destabilization of introducing fentanyl has become an epidemic of itself within the context of our country. Why? Well, because all of those fentanyl addicts, boom, militia, gang stalkers. They have been usurped from their empathy through their drug addiction. And they'll do anything to be the freaking rabid monkey on a freaking Ferris wheel to keep the psyop prostitution coming. That's a militia out there. And then not to mention the older generations of being bigots. There's another militia right there that think they have the right of running psychotic psyop assignments on their targets so they can get the grub down at the detriment of somebody else. I've seen you white folks out there. And then, not only that, the homeless. They have procured advantage through the homeless, because the destabilization of targeting your individual, get somebody homeless, and then approach their morality from them, so they can be dangled carrots to get back on track by running the psyop prostitution ring. That's a militia right there. I have watched where these homeless people go when I was in Washington to the watering hole of where they go get their psyop assignments. That's a militia out there. And whenever I had been planted at different institutions such as grocery stores or these little mini mall plazas, I watch where they go. I can see where the militia goes for their watering hole of getting their psyop assignments. That's a militia right there. I have seen the militia. The militia is not so much somebody dressed up in a uniform. They're hobos. They're drug addicts. And then you have the likes of those that have hobnobbed with the Nazis of the upper echelons doling out the psychotic psyop assignments. So anything ever happens to me or I go silent, well, that's because those are close to me or those driving around me have been passive aggressive in getting butt hurt because somehow they get triggered about what I'm talking about. In the event I go homeless again, that's because those close to me driving around with the technology had tried to, bribe those to get me to go homeless again. It's a whole psyop prostitution of selling out your integrity. So people who have been working on my case that are ethical, y'all need to step it up. My life has been uprooted. I humbly ask you, where have you been? Because if your politicians were worth a shit, you would have heard about these psyop assignments of all of these gang stalking, all of this organized community harassment out publicly in the media. Ask yourselves why it is not such a case. Because someone somewhere out there is getting the bribe down, the grub down of prostituting their integrity to keep that bitch silent. And then, for all of the politicians out there not doing a goddamn thing to bring gang stalking down with an abolishment date set, you guys are part of the problem. And here's a pertinent negative for you. With all of the institutions, you have your police officers, PD, you have your whatever institution, hospitals, schools, etc. Here's your pertinent negative. Ask them to show you what the subjective-objective protocol is for targeting of the individual to protect the individual. And then ask them, where's the subjective-objective protocol for gang stalking to protect the individual being gang stalked? If that said institution does not have anything in place, especially with human resources, with HR, that's because they're part of the problem. At this day and age, when you've had a physical concentration camp, and now, courtesy of Project Paperclip, all of the Nazis infiltrated with all of this organized community harassment. This is Nazi in origin. And if you don't know that, that's because you didn't want to educate yourself. So you can keep on with the grub down and pretending whatever it is you pretend about, that blood coin you had a right to. Anybody who's collaborated with Marcella Maria Landon Comiskey, Barbara Christine Lyles Regali, Timothy Paul Regali, Paul Douglas Regali, Don Renee Barber, for beginners, those are the ones who had been spearheading the gang stalking with the psychological psyop prostitution assignments on my ass. So if you've collaborated with any one of them, you've already been busted. And why the heavy hammer hasn't come down? Hell if I know. But I do know one thing. The Most High is on the throne. So I will be back to report whether or not the plausible deniability of usurping me from internet privileges has been another pattern. Because all that does is incriminate those around me. Because, these lovely indigents of moral decrepity sure really get butthurt over me speaking the truth. Where there should be no waves. I don't understand why a targeted individual doesn't procure support with, oh bitch, I'm sorry that's happened to you. I mean, shout out to Forsyth EMS with the crew of Zeke and Caitlin. You guys provided me, oh, I'm sorry, which ministered to me as a person and to my soul. Hold on to your integrity, because the moment the enemy can usurp you from it, it can hold it against you. So you all go get your weekly trainings, your monthly trainings, your, yearly trainings, and then confess to each other, which you all gotten away with, to help others feel good about demoralizing their own integrity compass. Because if anybody's ever had to come sideways at me with the plausible deniability, all it did was incriminate you. And if you were that butthurt, well, go inside and do your introspection of why you got butthurt on that. That may be your saving grace for you to kick in the salvation of your own soul. Don't get mad at me, because I'm speaking up and speaking out about everything ethical that I have experienced about that was evil and diabolic. Shouldn't you want to be helping those being targeted by demonic psychological torture? But thankfully, I was taken in by my cousin who loves me, says I'm family. So, just because the internet goes out doesn't mean that she knows about it. Because the internet goes out and I'm still able to log on, but there's no internet access. We all know that this demonic, psychotic prostitution of integrity, internet hackers, hello, how you doing? We all know when you hack my device, you let me know on YouTube by coming up with the erroneous comments and then hacking my software. My favorite one was when I had the Bible app installed on my phone. It has said, "You loving life?" I'm all like, okay. There was a couple of other instances, but I didn't write them down because why? I don't focus on that. I focus on the promise that if God did it for Job, he can do it for me. Until then, I'm going to take as many souls as I can and wake them up to be delivered from the snares of the evil, to be delivered from the snares of temptation. Because accepting the grub down of the almighty dollar and in favor of running psychotic prostitution, of prostituting your own integrity, you fell into the snare. I'm going to wake up as many people as I can to help get right with themselves, to become the superhero of being the prodigal son, prodigal daughter, prodigal family that comes home, and write your book about it. Because we all have a story to tell, and if you've experienced any of this, you're sitting on a gold mine of fortune by disclosing your experiences. Hello? If I've always said that from the top of my videos, hey, if you want to get really filthy rich, go public. Go straight and go public and write a book about it. Boom, millionaire. Because how many books do we have out right now? Like 0? And anybody plagiarizing my information, I don't have to even care about it because I know the ground larceny will fix itself in the court of spiritual awareness. I'm calling judgment on everybody. And then we all stand for everything we did or didn't do in the Nazi regime, that this gang stalking, psychotic psyop assignment of prostitution that has been enraged and deraveling the tapestry of moral accountability within the context of our country. If you are a politician, you suck. Until you can get that abolishment date set for, and every institution, that's what anybody can do as a private citizen. Call up your public police department and say, hey, I want a copy of your subjective objective protocol for targeting of the individual, for what happens to protect the targeted individual. As for the subjective objective protocol for the gang stalking, which would protect the individual being gang stalked, and see how you get gaslit or not. That's how you know that whatever institution that is pushing the 8 ball, and probably has a coven member in there right now selling out their aptitude of morality. And if you don't like what I'm saying, do your introspection, because I've said nothing but the truth. And if that gets you butthurt, that says more about you than it does about the targeted individual. And then maybe one day you'll be able to reset yourself and salvage your salvation. Because if your body happens to kick out by one of your other backstabbing cronies, you want to make sure that you get sucked into the highest vibratory frequency you possibly can, instead of the lowest one, where all of the demonic infestation enrages with all of that psychotic psyop assignment, prostituting your integrity, being two-faced. I mean, when I was talking, for some weird reason, there was a lot of banging, banging, banging. I don't know what's up with that. And yesterday when I was doing my video, there was a huge crash. I mean, I don't know what's up with that. And earlier this week, after I was done doing a video, when I thought I was alone in the house, the internet went out for 2 or 3 hours again. I'm all like, okay. Only God knows. And I pray for healing for everybody who found themselves all dolled up in all of that psychotic psyop prostitution of hoeing out one's integrity. Because all of that blood coin is cursed. So the militia out there is real. When you see homeless people, those are potential militia. When you see fentanyl drug addicts, that's a potential militia. But if you see them out and about working over a particular institute, such as a grocery store or one of those mini malls, watch where they go. Watch where they go. They all, well, you'll find the common denominator, and you'll find a watering hole. It's a militia. And then it's not only relegated to non-churches, Churches of worship will have their Stasi set up with the cars out front, with the twinsies. I know I've hit up on that in the past. I will do a video dedicated to that. So as soon as you pull up to some place, you can tell that there's the goddamn PSYOP prostitution ready to fling their feces with their PSYOP assignments so they can get the holy grub down. Because fuck being ethical, right? You can hoe out your ethics for a price. And I've seen it at doctor's offices. I've seen it at hospitals. Fight me on that. That's the militia. So, Ben, Patricia, and Landon Gallant, Chief Little Flower, coming at you from the privacy, the safety, and the sanctuary of my beloved first cousin and her gorgeous home and estate with the foster child who has brought me in. The clothes you see I'm wearing, she gifted me that. This she gifted me. Everything you see, she gifted me. She rescued me from the streets of being horrifically targeted in the trenches. But there are the minions that drive by and then use the directed energy weapons. Visit targetedjustice.com for patches on that. Because if you think directed energy weapons is a fallacy, you're pushing the 8 ball and you make the prime candidate to work over. Bye for now.
Beautiful.